Two classic shonen series sucked up by a greedy Western corporation, then spit back out into the market in safe-for-TV, grandma-approved live action. Released to absolutely massive or middling results based on what you're talking about. One became an overnight abridged sensation, retelling the classic story in an only mildly annoying Americanized way. And the other was Yu Yu Hakusho. That said, I did watch it twice, subbed and dubbed to say it's a perfectly average retelling, which plays out basically exactly how you'd expect, literally cramming half an anime into just 5 episodes would go. So if you like the original series, great, give it a watch. You'll enjoy the fights and effects. And if it's not your thing, we've got classic Yu Yu content on the channel for you instead. But today, since we're power scalers and not film critics, we're asking the simple question: how strong do two anime protagonists get when they're flung into the real world and forced to duke it out with each other on a Netflix budget? Because this is live action Luffy versus live action Yusuke. So, to start this video off, when touching on the world and scaling of any live action anime series, the most important detail to remember is that similar to most major adaptations, many minor details are bound to be tweaked or modified from the original source material. And it's especially true in the transition from a cartoon series to a real-life product. For example, did you know live-action Luffy was resistant to a poisonous soup, while manga Luffy nearly got unalived by a poisonous fish? It's the minor details like those which make looking at either series with the nerd goggles on a completely different experience. And also why I stress again that we're only using the live action versions of these two, because both new series exist in two entirely independent, separate canons that share absolutely nothing in common with the main manga continuity, short of it just being the same source material. That said though, because our poor One Piece fans haven't had much to go off of lately, and also so you Yu Yu fans don't get any funny ideas about leaving early, because boy oh boy do we have a lot to talk about with the scaling here, let's look at Luffy first, and leave the new old kid on the block for a little later in the video. In Luffy's case though, fortunately for us, the Netflix series had a lot more runtime, author input, and money thrown its way to make sure that this is still the classic goofy pirate story you all came to know and love, just in a slightly different package. For an example of what I mean here, we're jumping back to a pre-Wano classic with Luffy's Devil Fruit, which is the same as always, but now we're going back to calling it the Gum Gum Fruit, because unlike the manga where we got a whole lot more insight into it, as far as we know, this lad right here is a 100% genuine authentic rubber man and nothing else. As such, he should have the same powers and waterbound weaknesses that a beginning of series Luffy would have. Mainly, he sinks if he touches water, and he stretches. This gives him an extreme tolerance to blunt force damage, even against other superhumans, as well as flexible limbs to mix into his combat style. Which we see in the series, he's a bit more conservative and well thought out with its particular integration into his moveset, because even Netflix straight up did not have enough money to dump on the series for Luffy to just be spamming those gum gum attacks willy-nilly. But the trade-offs for budget weren't all bad though, at least in a scaling sense, because this pretty much locked all of Netflix Luffy's best feats to the pseudo-final fight of the series, Luffy vs. Arlong, which makes giving you the numbers on this kind of too easy and straightforward. I mean, like, seriously, for speed, Luffy's Gum Gum Gatling was rattling off about 4 punches every single frame, and if you go bing, blam, boom with a few numbers in the calculator, you can easily get him to over Mach 1, which is perfectly consistent with all the cannonball and firearm reacting feats in the series, such as this one for a casual Mihawk here, which is at Mach 1 as well. And then for AP, during the same fight, he decides to destroy Arlong Park, then using a single kick, he tears down most of the building, causing it to collapse in on itself, with this feat usually being calced to small building level, and boom, stats done. Really the only contentious or interesting thing to note here is that if you think Luffy should also scale to a casual Mihawk, since Zoro did tank one of his slashes without dying, sort of, then Luffy's AP should maybe go up to large building level due to scaling off of Mihawk's giant boat slicing feat seen here, but honestly, it's simple enough as it is. We've got small building to building level AP with simple Mach 1 speed and no real hacks besides being stretchy, so not much else to cover. But, like I said, live action Yu Yu is a whole other animal. And to scale this Yusuke, we're gonna have to do something I've never done before on the entirety of this channel: 10th grade level math. Because unlike our now much beloved Mexican Monkey D. Luffy, live action Yusuke has got nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing, to go off of. I'm pretty sure there's not a single person on the whole internet who has power scaled this guy yet, which means today we can't just go copying off all our more hardworking neighbors. And instead, I'll have to watch this whole thing again in slow-mo until I find something I'm actually capable of putting numbers to. Oh boy, this is gonna be a rough one. Alright, in all seriousness, this cloud feat here is probably the best place to start, because while Yusuke at the start of his series still did have a cool introduction, you know, coming back to life after the truck accident to repent for his life's actions, all he was really capable of at that point was basically beating down a discount necromorph, taking out a level 2 monster, and barely using his iconic laser pointer ray gun finger attack, before promptly getting one-tapped by Hiei. So all the feats before episode 3 basically amount to nothing. I mean, what do you want me to say? He was basically like peak human or wall level at that point. The interesting part is where most of the cramming begins to happen, as Yusuke goes off screen to train with Genkai for like half a month. Then he's suddenly powered up from beyond human level to literal yokai demon matching status, as he can now stalemate the aforementioned Hiei. And that's of course before Yusuke ever learns how to use the Spirit Wave Orb in this iteration, which he just sorta got without any struggle or strife, like it was some sort of Happy Meal from McDonald's. After acquiring said amps though, before mastering them, the first thing he does is show off his new and improved version of the Spirit Gun technique, which he proceeds to fire off into some clouds. Being conservative with my estimates here to avoid boring you, if we say that this is a cumulus cloud with an average water density of 0.3 grams per cubic meter, as well as using a quick Google search to vaguely say they're a kilometer wide on average, based upon how fast you think the expansion should be, which someone with more time and brain cells can figure out in the future. Even the lowest numbers I got, assuming the cloud barely moved, which we can see clearly isn't true, were still around small building level, and the higher estimates I got, assuming the cloud was moving in all directions at about 100 meters per second, came out to about building level. This ends up being pretty consistent, with an out-of-stamina human form Kurama being able to shrug off multiple of these more easily scalable wall-level explosions, as well as a number of other showings like Toguro shattering massive chunks of concrete and steel beams, or Hiei slicing through cars and demons, which can all easily range in the small building level category if you're charitable. Why I bring all this up though is because Yusuke proceeds to get 2 more power-ups in episode 5 of his series, where he goes from being vaguely equal to his friends to using the full Spirit Wave Orb's power to completely beat up a younger Toguro, who at 30% power was already easily beating all 3 of them put together. So if post-training arc Yusuke had this small building to building level feat, which is then multiplied to at least double to match a 30% Toguro, and then we learn that Toguro had an ultimate form beneath all of that, which Yusuke gets a true power rage amp to surpass, because again we're speedrunning Yu Yu here, we could, at the very least, easily say that Yusuke got a 10 times multiplier, since he was only around 10 to 20% of Toguro's full power prior to unlocking the Magic MacGuffin Orb's full power amp. And after getting every single amp, Yusuke at the end of the series could one-shot a full power Toguro, who was at 100% power, or maybe 120% if you think the anime and live action correlate, despite me saying otherwise. This would obviously shoot Yusuke past all the tiers we mentioned before and arrive at somewhere around city block level, which lines up pretty well with Toguro being basically immune to every attack from the main cast, even while reduced to that 30% like I mentioned, as well as many statements and feats all implying that every character in the cast would upscale from start of series Yusuke, who was still a superhuman in his own right. This logic also pretty much lines up with speed, as Yusuke could match Hiei in hand-to-hand combat, and even tag him with the spirit gun, despite Hiei being able to dodge regular point-blank handgun fire or catch freeway speed cars on foot. Then you add a 10 times multiplier for all of Yusuke's stupidly broken last episode amps, which just happens to line up perfectly with Toguro being able to flick his fingers at speeds fast enough to make the air around him dangerous, as well as the fact that he was able to just sort of blitz the entire cast. So hopefully it becomes pretty clear at this point, while live action One Piece is the far better show, making half an anime in only 5 episodes is a surefire way to make the power scaling absolutely ridiculous. And sure, Yusuke isn't going to beat Luffy with straight hands, but his spirit guns and Reiki are rated E for everyone, and as long as he manages to actually hit with the dang thing, the same power that literally disintegrated Toguro would leave Luffy in a worse position than wherever Giko over here landed himself. But hey, if you want to see a manga version of the matchup with the 2 white-haired warriors from other worlds, then let me know down below. And before the rest of you go, I just wanted to say one thing. Thanks, from the bottom of my heart, for 1,000 subscribers. I said reaching it in a month would be near impossible, but you guys managed to crack it in half that time. Since I know you're here for the content though, and because I really can't thank you in any other way, I just wanted to announce that our 1K special is coming soon, and it's a big one that you veterans of the channel have been anticipating for a very, very long time. Whatever you've all got in store for me next though, whether that's 10 days to 2K or TUCKALMIGHTY meets some other YouTubers, I'm just really glad to be along for the ride, and I thought you should know that I appreciate you guys. But anyways, I'll still keep the double content rolling for the rest of December like I promised. And that's all for today. Thanks, everyone.